Hello and welcome to Cult Classic Society, the podcast where I, Bobby Davis, and my pal Tim Martini, say hi Tim.
Hello.
We go through movies, we go through TV, we go through video games, we go through books, comic books, any kind of media you like, we like it too. We're going to go through it. Today we're going to be going through one that at the end of the last episode, I gave everyone a bit of a warning. There is some controversial content. Most of the content of 3 out of 4 of the episodes we're looking at is okay, with the little dabbles of not so nice stuff. But then there is one episode which we will talk about, which does have it, especially one scene that is not great. Hasn't aged well at all.
No, it has not.
Okay, but before we get to that, how are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing really well. It's been quite a good couple of weeks for me, actually. First off, saw John Wick 4. Masterpiece. We will be covering that once it comes out on home media. The Resident Evil 4 remake came out. Masterpiece. And last night I went to a early premiere of Evil Dead Rise, which again, fantastic. So I've had a great few weeks.
And you've added to the list, I see.
Of course.
Fawlty Towers.
Yes.
First series, 1974, written by John Cleese and Connie Booth. The show has been heavily edited for streaming platforms, and even when it now gets replayed on TV, much to John Cleese's chagrin. I read a thing where he called people cowards for doing it.
Of course he did.
I think he claims that there should be maybe just a disclaimer instead.
So, Fawlty Towers, that gets shown on daytime TV, I'm guessing.
On channels like UK Gold, yes.
But, like, during the day, like, afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Then, no, it shouldn't be put on TV. It should be censored, I think. Especially the scene that's in one of the episodes. Yeah, that scene should not be shown on TV during the day. Maybe in the evening, but not during the day.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
As I said, it was written by John Cleese and Connie Booth. They were real-life husband and wife.
Oh.
Connie Booth, he's who plays Polly.
Yes.
Yeah, and they were married at the time.
Okay.
Much to... It doesn't look like it. They were very similar age. John Cleese looks a lot older.
Yes.
And Prunella Scales, who plays Sybil, is quite a bit older than John Cleese. But because of his receding hairline and his gangly features, he just looks older.
And the moustache doesn't help, I would say.
No, yes, exactly. They actually wrote their own genders lines. So Cleese wrote all the male lines, and Booth wrote most of the female lines to give it some kind of, from that perspective, properly done kind of thing, rather than John Cleese writing for women, which he probably, may not have been great at. I don't know. It's based on a real hotel and a real hotelier.
Really?
When the guy found out, he was not pleased, but his daughter said it's a really accurate representation. And said, "Yeah, that's Daddy." One little nod. We spoke about in our 2 episodes ago when we did Detective Pikachu. We obviously spoke about Ryan Reynolds and spoke about Deadpool. Fawlty Towers is referenced in Deadpool.
Is it?
It is indeed. So when Deadpool is strapped to the bed and he's getting the treatment to give him the powers, he doesn't know Ajax. He's trying to find out Ajax's real name. He lists off 4 or 5 names, and the last one he says in a really over-the-top English accent is it Basil Fawlty?
Oh God!
So he's a bit. I think he's a bit of an Anglophile, because obviously he bought Wrexham FC and yeah. I don't know, but yeah, there is a reference to Fawlty Towers in Deadpool.
Interesting. I feel like that joke went over so many American heads then.
Undoubtedly, that was for us. Well, people older than us, really, because this is, this came out 15 years before I was born, and got 25 before you.
And I would say, like, no one in that generation was probably watching Deadpool. So.
Probably not. He did it for himself, clearly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Before we get started, Tim, before we go into our episodes, what did you know about Fawlty Towers before?
I knew it was John Cleese. I knew the name Manuel, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the 2 reference points a lot of people know, I think. Especially with the controversy with Andrew Sachs and Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross a few years back.
Was that the prank call controversy?
Yes. So Andrew Sachs, who plays Manuel, they called him and on Radio 2, I believe.
Yeah.
And said some not very nice things.
Yeah.
I don't really want to go into it, if I'm honest with you. First of 4 episodes we're going to be looking at is Series 1, Episode 4, Hotel Inspectors.
Yes.
Why don't you start us off, Tim?
First thing I noted was the sign says Fawlty Towers.
Yes, so every episode, the sign is vandalised in a different way.
Yes.
Sometimes you even see a kid doing it, like changing the letters around.
Yes.
He's not always there, but he's there a couple of times.
Basil is in the reception with Sybil, his wife.
So Basil is the lead, played by
John
Cleese, and Sybil is his wife, played by Prunella Scales.
She's having a very, very, very loud phone call.
She is.
And all I wrote was, I hate loud phone call conversations. You know those people when they'll have a phone call and they'll have their phone on speaker as well, so you hear both sides of the conversation.
I like to call those people obnoxious pricks. And
I have a harsher word for them, but
yeah, we do swear on this podcast, but there is one word we haven't dropped yet, and maybe we'll still save that for a while.
I feel like we need to save it for a special occasion.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so Sybil is quite obnoxious on the phone. Apparently, the laugh she puts on is based on Connie Booth's real laugh.
Oh.
No, we don't get to hear it, but there's a tidbit that is apparently out there. Another first thing I noticed is they're smoking inside.
Yeah, I know.
How
it's
weird
so
is that?
fascinating.
I'm just old enough I worked in a pub. The first year I worked in a pub at 18 to 19 years old was the last year you were allowed to smoke in a pub.
Really?
So I have a very small reference window for it.
That's it. I've never seen that. I've only seen it in like 80s movies.
Yeah, it's mad, right? It's weird now that you think, why was it ever allowed?
Yeah.
Basil obviously looks incredibly annoyed, and I think although this is the 4th episode, within 30 seconds you understand their relationship.
It's dysfunctional to say the least.
Yeah, like obviously you want this kind of thing established in the first episode, but by the 4th episode, you can, without words, you can see they kind of detest each other.
Yeah. A hotel guest comes to the front desk. Mr. Hutchinson, played by the late great Bernard Cribbins.
Yes, Bernard Cribbins of
So much fame.
Doctor Who.
Yes.
And
which will be his final role, because that's the last thing he filmed before he died, and he's in the 60th anniversary that drops this year.
oh, is he really? I'm looking forward to that. I was actually the song Right Said Fred.
Yeah.
Not the band Right Said Fred. The song Right Said Fred. That was Bernard Cribbins. Yes, and this guy. And have you ever worked in customer service, Tim?
Yes.
This guy, I've already used the word once. He's an obnoxious as fuck.
He doesn't want to use their phone because he could get a risk of infection. Because he wants to make a phone call, but he doesn't want to use their phone. He wants them to call the taxi for him.
It's weird that that's more relevant now than it was
Yeah.
in the 1970s, because we've had a big pandemic, and weirdly now it makes more sense. Basil and Sybil also argue over who should serve him,
Yeah.
which I find quite funny. And then he starts to speak, and my notes say, this customer is a Ponzi prick.
Yes.
He starts one sentence with the phrase, it matters not one whit. It's like, this is the 70s, not the 1920s. What the fuck are you talking about? He reminds me of, in The Simpsons, the guy who's had the stroke? Yes! He really reminds me of him. I love how annoyed Basil gets at this guy.
Yeah, I just was like, immediately, Basil is already done with this man.
So there's a really good joke right then. The guy obviously asks for a taxi, as you said, and Basil says, you want a taxi? And he says, in a nutshell, and he says, case more like. Like half under his breath, obviously like a screen whisper.
Yeah.
But it's like, we've all done that. If you've worked in customer service, you've walked away from someone being like, wanker, what a fucking dick.
So I used to work customer service on a phone line, actually.
Yeah.
So every few seconds, I just press the mute button and go, you're a prick. And then
Yeah.
unmute.
You utter cunt. Oh, I've said it. No.
We'll believe that.
When the customer then requests a diagram of the local town.
Yes.
This is the kind of prick that I have dealt with in my customer service times. He want you to go above and beyond something there's a service you do not offer as part of this establishment.
Exactly.
He is not a cartographer. He
Yeah.
does not need to draw you a map. He can give you directions vocally. Like,
Yeah.
fuck off, you prick. Manuel arrives, and this is where some of the shakiness starts.
Yes.
So the character of Manuel is massively well loved and also considered a little problematic. Both Andrew Sachs and John Cleese have gone on record as saying he's not he's not a stupid foreigner, which is what people accuse it of being. It's that he isn't good at English and Basil isn't good at Spanish, and Basil's a bit of a bully.
Okay, but the way Manuel acts is like the village idiot.
Yes. So this is what they say. What's on screen is often different to that.
Yes.
There are points where you can almost glean what they're saying, but most of the time it makes Manuel out to be a moron.
Yeah, that's often the punchline of his scenes.
Yeah.
And the fact is, he walks with a hunch.
Just to hide from Basil, though, mostly.
But no, even when in the later scene when he's like in the dining room, he's still walking with that hunch. He's very nervous, like on edge, and it's like, okay, you are, and he's making like a lot of mistakes, and a lot of it can't just be up to like he doesn't understand English. Like, no, you are treating him like he's an idiot.
Yeah, and the fact that Basil bullies him makes it worse, for sure.
And also, this is clearly a white man who's wearing a lot of heavy makeup.
He is, yes, he's part German, I think, Andrew Sachs. But yeah, he's a white guy. They people have said, played it exactly the same way, but by an Hispanic person, it would be less problematic. Still problematic, but less problematic. Andrew Sachs has come out and said, well, if Manuel is meant to be a general interpretation of stupid foreigners, quote unquote, then what does that make Basil as a representation of the English? Which is a wanker.
Yes.
But it's not a good enough point to kind of undo.
No.
Now the problems that rise through pretty much every episode is the interpretation of Manuel.
Yes.
Only one other episode has something really like that goes beyond that, which we will obviously
we will talk about. But my thing, going back to Andrew Sachs's statement, is every other character, except for one, which is the doctor in the Germans episode, is white.
Yes.
And British.
And or played by a white British person.
Exactly.
Or, yeah.
You have different facets of what an English person is, but in the show you've put one foreign person as like a main character, and that is who you're pushing the entire time. That is your representation. That is your foreign representation, and they're a joke.
Yeah.
He never gets like a one-up on Basil or anything. He is constantly punched down.
As a spoiler, he never does.
Don't
get me wrong, Basil gets comeuppance, but none of it's from Manuel.
And that's the problem. If Manuel a couple of times got a one-up on him, I wouldn't say he would make it better, but it could alleviate some of the issues. But when you have a white man punching down the stupid foreigner, because that's what he is, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah, agreed. Saying all of that, there is a next bit after Manuel arrives that I do quite like. They use flashcards to communicate quickly. Yes. So Basil's got 3 flashcards. One that's a picture of a suitcase, one that points upstairs, and one that says room 7.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that works. There's a communication barrier. That works.
Yeah. That actually reminds me when I was studying French, and that's how we would like communicate to like quickly remember how to say something in French.
Oh, nice. I was never very good at languages, like most British people.
Yeah.
So Sybil starts getting on Basil for being rude to the guests, and Basil is immediately like, well, some of them deserve it. And having, again, worked in customer service for a long time,
I agree. Then Mr. Hutchinson has a insane request. He's asking to reserve the televisual feast, so he would want them to put it on the screen for him.
I've got the quote here if you want me to say it properly.
Please do.
Is it possible for me to reserve the BBC 2 channel for the duration of this televisual feast? And then Basil says, why don't you talk properly?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. We also see the Major in this scene who lives in the hotel, an older man. There's a few permanent residents in the hotel. Yes. He's one of them. This is where, after he's said that, Basil kind of puts 2 and 2 together and realises this man might be the hotel inspector.
Doesn't Sybil mention that a friend of hers was in the pub and heard about 3 inspectors?
Oh, yeah, so that was before the scene where Mr. Hutchinson comes back.
He then comes back.
After the conversation about Basil being rude to the guests, Sybil tells him her friend overheard that there are 3 hotel inspectors in the town. It's based in Torquay, by the way.
Yes. And then when Mr. Hutchinson comes back, he's like, yes, we will do that for you. He has to, he acts overly nice to him now.
He completely changes his attitude and starts, simping to this moron.
Yeah.
This is when Polly comes along.
Yes.
Polly, played by Connie Booth. Then wife of John Cleese. They were divorced by the time they recorded Series 2.
Really?
Yes, they were. But clearly still amicable because they wrote together and stuff.
Yeah.
Basil starts lunch early for Mr. Hutchinson, and Polly, like with first meeting Mr. Hutchinson, realizes what a cunt he is and gives him so much sass.
Oh yeah.
She doesn't care.
So much deserved sass.
So what I like about the character of Polly, and having worked with young people, especially when they've got a part-time job that's secondary to say their studies, which is what Polly's character is, they don't care about that part-time job.
No.
Not really. So she's so willing to just be like, all right, you're an idiot. Like, without saying it, but saying it with her eyes.
Yeah. And with her tone of voice.
Speaking of the way people say things, the way Mr. Hutchinson pronounced vegetables. Vegetables. Fuck off.
I know people who say it like that, and it actually upsets me.
Poncy bastards.
Yep.
Joining in the dining room as this happens, there is a man who I would say looks much more like a hotel inspector.
Yes.
Kind of a well-to-do, tall man. Says good afternoon to Basil.
This is the character of Mr. Waltz.
Mr. Waltz, that's the character, yes. Manuel immediately misunderstands everything he says.
Yes.
When he can't find the English word, starts to just speak in Spanish.
Yeah.
And obviously, this man, Mr. Waltz, possible hotel inspector, does not understand what he's saying. So, in a way, his Spanish is worse than Manuel's English. Basil comes back to find that Manuel has put Mr. Waltz in Mr. Hutchinson's space, and he gets upset because he now believes that Hutchinson is the hotel inspector. And this is where he starts to do his proper gangly comic movements. And he's Jim Carrey before Jim Carrey. He's ganglier, he's taller, and he still moves like him, but with even longer limbs.
Yeah, it's a sight to behold, to be honest.
Basil moves Mr. Waltz back.
Yeah.
And he starts to get annoyed, obviously. Hutchinson returns. Oh my god, I've just written, no, I hate him. I fucking hate him.
I just feel like I love him so much, like, because it's Bernard Cribbins, and just like knowing how nice of a person Bernard Cribbins was, and then how much he's just committing to be this utter arsehole.
It's like a good heel in wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, most good heels are played by genuinely nice people.
Yeah.
And he's just got it down, hasn't he? He makes you hate him, and like you said, I love Bernard Cribbins. He's great.
But it's this moment where you feel sorry for Basil, even though Basil is a prick.
Elaborate. Why do you feel sorry for him?
Because, as we said, we work in customer service. Even though the person you're serving is a complete dick, you are technically at their mercy because you have to be nice to them, because it can be your job on the line. It could be your establishment's reputation. So you are at this customer's mercy because there's a stupid rule that people like to spout. And if you believe in this rule, you're a fucking idiot. They always say the customer's always right. No, you're fucking not.
Is the customer always right, or the person who's been trained to do the job right?
Exactly. The customer isn't right. The customer who says that is entitled.
Yes, an entitled prick. I 100% agree. Having said that, with Basil now simping to Mr. Hutchinson, the guest who's been nice to him, Mr. Waltz, who hasn't done anything wrong, he's just been, hello, can I have lunch, please? He's being a right knob to.
Yeah.
But he's doing it in front of Hutchinson, who he believes is a hotel inspector, which is even funnier. Because surely a hotel inspector's going to witness what you do to other guests as well.
Well, he's trying to distract him and go, oh, you're sorted, and then turns around to Mr. Walt. But it's clearly, if he's an inspector, he's going to be paying attention to what the head of the hotel was doing.
Yeah, he then, Mr. Waltz asks for wine, which Basil struggles to open.
I wrote that as amazing physical comedy.
Say what you want about the writing on this. You cannot fault John Cleese's physical comedy. Every single thing he does to try and get a laugh with his body, he knocks it out of the park.
This was pre-Monty Python, wasn't it?
It's post-Monty Python.
Post-Monty Python?
The hotel that he stayed at, where he got the idea, they were staying at while they were shooting Python.
Oh.
Yeah. And he would stay there a lot because they were shooting the same place.
Yeah. Wait, but was this? I guess this was also. Was pre-movies though?
Yeah, I believe so. But post TV show.
Post TV show. Okay. Yeah.
Basil gets annoyed because the customer complains that the wine is bad.
It's corked. And he said, "What do you mean? I just opened it in front of you." And it's like it's clear it's corked because when he poured the wine, dribbles were coming out.
And
so
it
clearly,
broke,
So clearly the cork was still inside.
Yes. And then Basil gets upset that he's going to have to pay for that bottle. Which is part of that's called wastage. It happens in every business. Sybil. Now this is an invasion of privacy, and tells you who Sybil really is. She listens in on Hutchinson's phone call that he has and finds out that he's not a hotel inspector. He sells spoons.
But I love it so much because the moment that Basil finds that out, a gear switches in his head, and he's like, "I can be rude to him again."
He goes Super Saiyan rude. He actually struggles to hold it in.
Yeah.
He's like, he would just be screaming at him, but he just does it through his teeth, and he's just, "Oh, you sell spoons."
Because then he kind of thinks, oh, maybe the other guy, Mr. Walt,
Yeah,
is the inspector. Considering how he is dressed, how he talks and everything, he could be.
talks about, clearly has a knowledge of wine,
Yes.
and wearing a good suit, and yeah, he could well be. When there's all the kerfuffle going on, Hutchinson drops another line that makes me want to punch him, which is, "I have been given an erroneous dish."
Yes.
Shut up.
Because they keep getting his orders wrong. Because all he wanted was an omelette.
Yeah, and then he changes it, right?
He changed to a salad, but then they give him like a steak, sausages, and he's getting like so mad, and there's like an unseen chef somehow getting this wrong.
Basil asks Manuel what happened to the bottle of wine that was on Mr. Waltz's table. And this is where we first get to see all the real bullying of Manuel.
Yes.
He calls him a waste of space, then conks him on the head with a metal spoon, and it sounds grim.
Sounds painful.
That's already like a big dagger in the idea that he's not an idiot. The main character is calling him an idiot.
Yeah.
He's calling him a waste of space.
Basil is trying to impress Mr. Walt with his knowledge of wines. And he goes, like Bordeaux, and he's like, "Do you think it's a Bordeaux or a claret?" And Mr. Walt goes, "A Bordeaux is a claret."
So Basil clearly wants to be. He's a bit like Del Boy in that he from Only Fools and Horses. He wants to be more of the upper class than he actually is.
Yeah.
And he's not as educated about stuff like wines and stuff, but he wants to give off the opinion that he is. These moments happen almost in every episode.
Yeah.
Where he makes a prat of himself.
I kind of say when I used to work as a wait service, I'd have to be like the person who would open the wine and pour it, and then have to describe what the wine is. So before we go out, we just scan the bottle, get the year, the location, and the grape, and just be like, "Cool, just remember all this." And then as we're pouring, the one-handed pour, you have to make eye contact with everyone and go, "This is a Bordeaux from 1799." It's like
1799. That's probably gone bad by then, mate.
Oh no, the older the better, apparently.
I couldn't do a job like that, and I actually wouldn't want to be served like that either.
Nope, I quit after 2 months.
I'm much more, I not only am I a more relaxed person, I want people to be more relaxed around me. I can't be doing with that shit. As Basil chases Manuel back into the kitchen, he sexually assaults him.
Yeah.
Grabs his ass. Now another wrong order comes out for Mr. Hutchinson, which is now a lamb casserole. And then Basil asks Polly, he didn't order a lamb casserole, so why has he got one? Polly says, Miss Fawlty told me to give him one. And Basil says, I know how she feels. Which is a good line.
And they have a bit where Basil insults Mr. Hutchinson. Because what did you say? It's like, no, I was talking to Polly. And they have this bit where they're staring at the other person and then talking to the other person. So you stare at Mr. Hutchinson and say, "Oh, I'm talking to Polly," and Polly goes along with it.
You told me to shut up. No, I didn't. He was talking to me.
Yeah.
And, they both spend a 40-second conversation.
Yeah.
Saying stuff to one person but looking at the other to try convince Hutchinson that he's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Even though that is what Basil did, which is really good. Manuel kind of comes back in and he runs like you said, low and crouching and scared of Basil, trying not to get. He's holding his arse and his head.
Yeah.
Which is I don't want to be clonked with a spoon or have my arse grabbed again. Which is not a safe space.
No.
Fawlty Towers is not a safe space to work. Hutchinson gets another wrong meal. Starts to get really annoyed and stand up for himself.
Yeah.
And this is where Basil just talks over him because obviously he doesn't want Waltz to hear.
He just tries to silence him.
So grabs him around the throat, starts laughing really loudly. Hutchinson gets even more upset. Basil basically accidentally chokes him out.
Yeah.
And I put here, I'm glad he got hurt. Prick.
Exactly, he deserves it.
Basil and Manuel then grab Hutchinson and take him away, and Sybil calls the doctor about it.
Yeah.
While he's back at the front desk dealing with Mr. Waltz.
Yeah.
And Hutchinson kind of regains consciousness and comes around and beats Basil up.
Yeah, that's right. He assaults him.
He beats the shit out of him. And Basil pretends that it's all part of he's a regular customer and it's all fun and games. He loves to have a fight. Then Basil offers Waltz £50 not to write about it. £50 in the 70s.
That's a lot of money.
That's like over a week's wages for most people. Probably
Yeah.
over a month for a fair few people at that time. Basil gets worried and says, "Don't put this in the guide." And he says, "Oh, I shouldn't have mentioned it. What have I done?" Basil starts like this insane crying.
It's pleading.
John Cleese's performance in this, one of the reasons this is so loved and regarded is Cleese's performance. His comic timing and his delivery is unreal.
That's it, like, despite things he says in current day,
Yeah.
he understands comedy. And there's a reason why he is arguably the breakout star of Monty Python.
Of the Pythons, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason that to this day he's still writing comedy
Yes.
and performing it. At this point in the episode, 3 hotel inspectors come in.
Yes.
And as they stand wait for it to be served, Basil and Manuel come out with cream pies.
Yes.
And put one in Hutchinson's face and then down his trousers, right?
Yeah. My favourite thing is this moment where Basil goes up to the receptionist, like, "What do you find 3 gentlemen want?" Pauses for a second, and then screams.
Like, just a guttural, such a loud scream.
It's a perfectly cut scream as well.
When Basil and Manuel are hitting with the cream pies and then filling his suitcase with the cream pies, despite their language barrier, that seemed well planned.
Yeah.
The timings were great. Another, like, 2 very good physical by Andrew Sachs as well. The physical act of pieing Hutchinson and then walking to the desk and then that scream, all in one take, if I remember rightly. Very well, like, kind of put together, well timed, just good performance. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
What did you think of the hotel inspectors?
I thought it was really good. I think it's a really good introduction to everyone, the dysfunction of the hotel itself, and how dysfunctional Basil is as a character.
As a human being.
Yes, as a person, yes. My issue is I don't think there's enough for Sybil.
Sybil comes and goes. There are other episodes where she's very prominent and episodes where she's less prominent. She's definitely the foil to Basil. Basil is the lead character. She is the foil. She's the one who makes his life harder.
Yeah.
She doesn't... In fact, Prunella Scales and Sybil, she has some of the best lines in all of the series.
Yeah.
And she delivers them impeccably. Apparently, though, some of them were the more mean ones. She didn't want to deliver, or didn't, like, there's bits where she hits Basil and she just didn't want to do it. Prunella Scales didn't want to do it because she's apparently, like, was a super nice woman.
She sounds so lovely.
And it's like, oh, go on, just do it, just hit him, go on. But her performance was amazing. Like, you wouldn't ever think that she was reticent to be aggressive towards John Cleese.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so we're going to move on to the episode that we spoke about being controversial. We're going to do it now for 2 reasons. One, I thought about doing it at the end.
Yeah.
But I thought, that's going to be a downer for the end of the episode. Although the worst thing happens earlier on in the episode. 2, this is the chronological order.
Yeah.
So I thought this is probably just the best way to do it. Get it out of the way in the middle of in the middle of our episode.
I feel like we're going to end up having like a meaty discussion on it, and obviously you don't want to have that discussion right at the end.
No, I'd rather end light.
Yeah. Yes, and considering what our last episode is, yes, I think that's it. Yes.
So it opens with Basil visiting Sybil in the hospital. This is the only scene in all 2 series not set at the hotel.
Yes, and because I was very curious, I was like, where's the vandalized sign?
4/5 of the episode is still in the hotel.
Yes.
But it's the only scene set outside of the hotel. Sybil reminds Basil that he needs to do a fire drill. And then they talk about the idea that they scrape the mould off of the cheddar. And I'm like, man, no. That's so grim. I know it's the 70s, but there must have been health standards.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. Sybil's in the hospital for having an ingrown nail.
Ingrown toenail, yeah.
Ingrown toenail, which is...
You don't have surgery for those anymore if it's not too bad. They use like a silver nitrate thing.
Yeah.
And it makes the skin pull back and you can cut it away.
Well, that's good. I mean, I've never experienced that, and I hope I never will. But, so, my favourite lines are, the nurse comes in, and she's like, the doctor will be here shortly. He goes, my God, a doctor in a hospital?
Just before that, there is a story beat, which is where Sybil reminds Basil that he has to put the moose head up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, as you say, the nurse comes in, and she tries to usher Basil out. That line you said was great. There's another great line where she goes, "Come on, now out," and he goes, "Were you talking to me? I thought there was a dog in here." You know what? He's right.
Yeah.
There's another classic sitcom that we're going to cover called One Foot in the Grave.
Okay.
90s, not as controversial. Lead character Victor Meldrew, very old man. Everyone's like, he's got the archetype of the grumpy old man. And I've watched it recently, again. 99% of the time, he is 100% right. Someone is being an arsehole and he's standing up for himself.
Yeah.
But he's still got this thing because he's an old man. He's the grumpy old man. And sometimes Basil embodies that. He's right. She's being a dick.
I'm looking forward to that. So Basil finally walks out of the room because he finally gets ushered out. And then the Doctor appears. And for a second he's intimidated because the Doctor is black. He literally backs away and he goes, "I'm the Doctor." Oh, and then he straightens up.
When I first watched that bit, I was like, is that... Because the rest of the content of this episode, then I thought, what he's done there, what I think they've done anyway, is they've written that as Basil is a prick.
Yeah.
Like, Basil is a lower middle class, racist because he's in the 70s.
Yeah.
Just an arsehole, right? And I sat and thought about it for a while, and I rewatched that, just the clip, and the scene doesn't read in a racist way, apart from, well, I suppose it's not from me to say. To me, the scene doesn't read that they've written it to be a jab at race. It comes to me that it's a jab at racists.
Yes.
Like, the character of Basil is clearly a little bit racist.
Yeah.
So the second a black man walks in, he's scared.
Yeah.
When it turns out the black man's the Doctor, he kind of settles down.
Yeah.
But there is that moment where you go, Basil, you dick.
Yeah.
I was just on your side 30 seconds ago.
Exactly. I was like, oh fuck. He gets told, oh yeah, your wife will be in pain she'll experience some pain in the morning. And the look of glee on his face when he finds that out.
There is one more bit where he says to the nurse just before he leaves, he says, "Ingrown toenail, right foot, you'll find it at the end of the leg," which I thought was really funny. As he leaves, he goes out of the room and he claps his hands.
Yeah.
And do you notice how he starts the next scene?
Is he clapping his hands?
Claps his hands.
Yeah.
But he's at the hotel. So it's like he repeats the motion, which...
He's been clapping the whole way there.
I think, yeah, because he's so gleeful that she's going to have a painful surgery. I think if I was editing that, I would have cut one of those claps.
I can't like, no, but I just imagine him just clapping the entire way home. Well, hotel. Yeah.
She's going to get, he lives at the hotel, so it is home. This is the scene that's going to be quite hard for us to discuss, I think. And I think we may have to. We're not going to say what he says. It's
absolutely.
Awful. And there's absolutely no way it should be repeated. And a lot of people won't have even heard it because, like I said, it's not readily available. This thing. When Basil gets back to the hotel, he immediately is greeted by the Major. The Major is a very old man, he's called the Major because he's obviously a former military man.
Yes.
First thing he does is actually ask about Sybil. And then he kind of goes on a bit of a tirade about women first.
Yes.
Saying he says that they're strange creatures. I knew one once.
Yes.
Which was like, right, weird thing to say. And then he drops an N-bomb.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
The other word, I don't know, can we say that word? Like, I don't know if that word...
I would say not.
Okay,
So he drops two racial slurs, the N-bomb and another one beginning with W.
Yes.
That are...
Not wanker, we should stress that.
That is not a racial slur, Tim.
It's a slur, and obviously some people might not know what this term is, actually, because I don't think it's commonly used now.
No, it's nowhere near as used. It was definitely prevalent in the 70s. The Major drops these racial slurs in reference to South Asian cricket team, which is perplexing because he talks about how much he's enjoying cricket and then drops racial slurs.
Yes.
And then Basil doesn't even react to them. He kind of is like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then, like, fobs the Major off a bit.
Because I was going to say, the laugh track, they laugh at that, and if this was done in modern day, like now, with a laugh track, they would be gasping. Because it'd be like, oh, he said that. But here, it's like, oh, he said that. That's so funny. And it's like, it seems commonplace.
I think if it was to be written today, you would find it played for, he's an ignorant old man,
yes.
And Basil would be more shocked, and the audience would gasp.
Yes.
I don't think that's what they were playing at. Basil doesn't react enough for it to be that.
Basil's
Basil kind
reaction
of just shrugs it off.
in his mind is more like, I don't want him being in this conversation, not because you've said that, more because I just want to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, you old codger, get away from me.
Yes, and it's just it doesn't hold up. You can see why this scene has been scrubbed from streaming services, because streaming services and daytime TV, because you put us on daytime TV, that's insane.
I feel like there's always been a little bit of controversy about this, and a lot of people don't even know about this scene. Because of the stuff with Manuel, because of the stuff later in this episode, which,
Yes.
by comparison, is tame.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially at the time it was filmed.
Yes.
But this is...
Has John Cleese addressed this?
No, I've not found anything specific about this scene.
Because he wrote that.
Yes, he would have written that, yes.
So, and he, as you said, thinks this shouldn't be censored.
For as far as my reading goes, he's used the word cowards about the censoring of the show, with the presumption that you would put a warning about the time it was written. And
my only argument is, if you're going to put it on there, you put this on streaming services, you mark this episode 18.
Oh, yeah.
And you put a warning
Massive disclaimer
at the time, blah, 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 blah. Because, yeah.
Disney do it now, they put disclaimers on their old stuff.
Exactly. Except Sons of the South, that has not been redistributed, and that never will.
Yeah, rightly so. And this is... It's weird that we chose to record this at the time, because there was a thing that came out in the news yesterday about a Tory politician as well.
Yes.
It's an odd time to be recording this.
Yeah, and so my thing is, yes, I can understand why this has been removed, especially on TV. I do agree with the sense that for preservation's sake and stuff, yes, this should be kept, but there should be heavy guidelines on where and who watches.
I think my opinion on it is, in the BBC vaults, there should be the full version kept.
Yes.
Current DVDs, current streaming, you should just cut this scene. It adds nothing to the story. I think if you were to cut it and it would take something away from the story, there would be more of a thing to say. Either the episode feels incomplete or whatever. You do not need this. So it is completely unneeded. It is a throwaway line, or couple of lines that are meant to be a non-story based joke.
Yes. So you've watched the show before, and this is the first time you've seen this.
Yeah. So I've never had them on DVD. We bought some original DVDs, put them out, and this scene is intact on it, and it's never been intact on streaming. I'd never watched Fawlty Towers before they released it on Netflix about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And it was not on that version.
So this scene's in there, just that line's not there.
Pretty much the whole scene is removed, if I remember rightly. You don't see him return to the hotel. You don't see the Major. It comes back to Basil.
Put up the moose head.
Basil answering the phone to Sybil.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So he's back at the hotel, and she reminds him to put the moose head up.
Because, there's other stuff that the Major says here, which does seem tame. When Basil says, "Oh, Germans are coming," he goes, "Bunch of krauts."
Yes.
And then he says, "I hate Germans, love women." And it just feels like this is John Cleese going, what would an old man who presumably fought in World War II say?
What would a very out of touch, very uneducated man in, I think, probably his 80s say?
But my thing is, what's the punchline?
Yeah, well, what's the point?
Because there is no punchline with this, because it's just an old man saying horrible things.
It feels like an excuse to put racial slurs on a TV show.
It does, and the thing is, you're not laughing at him for saying it. The way it's presented, you're almost meant to weirdly laugh with him.
There's definitely stuff that's been released in the last 15 years. We're recording in 2023. There's definitely been stuff in the last 10 to 15 years that has done this ironically, where you're supposed to think the character is a horrible person. And it's been done. This is not what it is.
The whole of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the whole point of that show is awful people doing, saying, and acting in awful ways, but they are the punchline.
Yeah.
Because they get their comeuppance every time. Nothing bad happens to the Major in this episode.
He should have killed over dead by the end of it.
His old racist heart explodes.
Let's move on, Tim. I think that's...
Can we? We said our things. We're going to get called woke and PC after this now. And,
and it's,
you know what?
it's also
we fucking are.
It's also hard for two white guys to kind of empathise as much as we probably can.
Come on, let's continue being snowflakes while we talk about this controversial episode.
Sybil rings to remind Basil to put up the moose head, and he's like, "I've just got home. I'm going to do it." Jesus Christ! She says something about, remind him it's an ingrown toenail. I wish it was an ingrown tongue.
Yes,
which is a good little line, and again highlights their marriage.
Which is just hating each other. Let's be real.
Yeah, I still don't know how they can play the Manuel misunderstanding card, because Basil asks him to go get a hammer. He does not understand what Basil is talking about.
Yeah,
he just says, "All right, I'll go get it. You man the desk." Basil puts the moose head on the desk, and Manuel just starts cleaning underneath the desk, and the Major returns. Unfortunately,
Manuel starts doing a faux English, I'm talking English.
He's like, I learned English from a book. And the Major thinks the moose is talking. When Basil returns, is this now or is this the later scene?
It's this bit.
He asks Basil where he got it from, and he says, Canada, I think. And he's like, oh, normally the Japanese come up with stuff like this.
How much did you buy it for? £12. Really? That much?
A nice light, even though it's that same character, a nice light joke. Like the misunderstanding, thinking it's the moose talking.
Like, presenting him like that, senile like that, that's fine.
Yeah.
And in that, he is essentially the punchline. He is the butt of the joke. That's fine.
Sybil rings again.
And he literally, I'm doing it!
Polly, who asks, how's the nail? And Basil says, I wish it was this one.
Yes.
He's in the iron nail he's going to put the moose head up with. Basil puts the moose head up and it immediately falls down.
Yeah.
And he collapses over Manuel, who's now still crouched down.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, a glass vase falls on his head. Just gets his ass kicked by inanimate objects mostly.
And again, the physical comedy, just perfect.
Yeah, the way his legs fail as he falls. And John Cleese, for as we mentioned, the fault that is some of the writing and some of the presentation, his physical comedy is, very few people can kind of do what he does to that level.
Yeah.
We cut to a bit later, the moose head is finally up and then one of the antlers just falls off.
Yeah, it just keeps falling.
Basil then reminds the guests that there's going to be a fire drill. Then Polly comes to re-remind him. He's like, I know there's a fire drill. Then Sybil calls and reminds him. He's like, I know. Then Basil, so with especially older fire alarms, you don't see, if you're doing a drill, you don't want to break the glass to set it off. There's a key to open the glass. He goes to get the key from the safe. In going to the safe, he sets off the burglar alarm. All the guests then leave the building, or try to leave the building, and Basil stops them going, that's not the fire alarm, it's the burglar alarm. And they're like, how do we know that?
He's like, they're a semitone higher.
They sound completely different.
And then he turns on the fire alarm and they go, okay, time to leave. No, not now.
That was just me showing you.
And then he's like, it will start at 1 o'clock. And then they all just stand around. It's like, why are you standing around? It's like, we're waiting for the fire drill. It's like, this isn't a drill. Go and do your thing.
If there was a fire, you'd obviously all be standing in the lobby here, wouldn't you? I don't know why I bother. We should let you all burn. That's what he says.
It's great.
And then Sybil calls again. He's like, we're doing it. As this is all happening, Manuel starts an actual fire in the kitchen. And this is where Andrew Sachs actually gets to show off his physical comedy.
Yes.
He's flailing his arms. He does a really great job. There's a bit of a sad thing about this scene, though.
Did he actually get burnt?
Not from the fire. So the clothes that he's wearing after, where it's like it looks burnt, were chemically treated. And the chemicals burnt his skin.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think he actually got some money from the BBC for that.
Good. Jeez.
Manuel, before he catches on fire, but after the fire has started, tries to leave the kitchen, and Basil just kicks him back in.
Throws him back in, yeah.
This is especially if Manuel can't verbalise his point. This must be like some crazy torture.
And then instead of, because the fire alarm, he can't get to work or whatever, he just screams at the people, fire, 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 fire.
So now he realises there is an actual fire, and he can't find the key. And Polly's like, why? It's an actual fire. Why are you finding the key? Break the glass.
He just keeps failing to do it.
Yeah. And then he eventually, he does it with the phone rings again. Oh, you're going to be Sybil.
Like, hello.
And he smashes the glass with the phone handle, which is really funny.
And then he gets a fire extinguisher, breaks it off, and then he just squirts it into his eyes.
Well, this is the thing. It knocks him out, but it looks like just the foam hits him in the face. I think they're trying to sell that the bit flew off the top and hits him in the face. Not really what happened if you watch it.
No, if you watch it, it's just water hits him in the eyes.
This is another time where I said Cleese is the pre-Jim Carrey.
Yes.
There's the bit where he he passes out from it. Basil wakes up in the hospital. At this point, Sybil's in a wheelchair and she says, "Well, thanks for coming to see me." He's got a bandage round his head and he's laying in bed. And he has a concussion.
He has a concussion, which is interesting considering concussions in the 70s, well, they weren't as widely, in detail known about what they are and how they affect the brain as they do.
It's more the long-term effects they didn't know. They understand that they can knock you scatty for a few days.
Yeah.
But then after that, they thought, the brain just gets better. That's not what happens.
No, it's not. Take care of your brains, everyone, please.
He claims that the extinguisher nearly blew his head off, but it hardly touched him, as we touched on. And then the nurse comes back, the same nurse as before. And she tries to get him back into bed as he's trying to get out, saying he needs to go back to the hotel. And he says, "Don't touch me, I don't know where you've been." And he says to her, "My God, you're ugly, aren't you?" And then she says, "Oh, the doctor will be here in a minute." And he says, "You need a plastic surgeon, dear, not a doctor." He's such an arsehole to her. To be fair, she was a dick earlier to him, so, what goes around comes around. Sybil then lists off all the stuff that Basil's done while she wasn't even there, so obviously she's spoken to Polly.
Yeah.
The doctor comes in to check on Basil, same doctor as before. He tells Basil that he just needs to rest, he can't go back to work, and Basil agrees and kind of closes his eyes and looks like he drops off. Sybil and the doctor leave, and Basil's one eye darts open in an incredible, how is he controlling his face?
I know.
It's like that rubber face thing that Jim Carrey can do, like I said before. It's great.
Honestly, it's spectacular.
He goes back to the hotel.
And the German's are already there.
So Polly, earlier in the episode, has got a German phrase book, and he's like, "Why are you bothering?" She's like, "Well, I want her to talk to the guests." Her German's already pretty good.
Yeah.
She must be the most intelligent person ever. I don't know what's going on there. Basil comes back in, and he's all over the place. One of the German guests comes to the desk and asks Basil if he speaks German, and Basil says, "Oh, German, I'm sorry, I thought there was something wrong with you."
I have that written.
Which is, that's a lot, that to me, obviously he's got a concussion, but that to me, the joke is on Basil. He is, he's an idiot.
I mean, this whole segment, this whole part, is just Basil, he's been knocked loopy, he's clearly not thinking properly, and it's just him being a fucking idiot.
He's an arsehole. So, for some context, German guests are staying at the hotel. This is less than 30 years from the end of the Second World War. Basil as a character, he's got to be, 45?
Yeah.
So he probably remembers it as well. So he's probably got some harboured resentment towards German people. There's a lot of, even up to the 90s, a lot of the British people, because their parents and grandparents suffered through either being soldiers or kids in the war. And it's only probably post-2000 that the attitude towards Germany has changed significantly. Don't get me wrong, over time it slowly was changing. But this snapshot really shows you how, you think they laughed earlier about the lines we were saying. The lines from the studio audience here are hysterical.
Yes. And so, full context, I live with my mother. I have no shame of that. She saw I was watching this, and she said, "Are you watching the Germans episode?" I was like, "Yes." She said, and her words, "It's hilarious." Because she was a child when this came out. So
yeah, that makes absolute sense. And she probably remembers what the attitude was to Germany and German people at the time. There's a bit where Basil does a really bad German accent, and it reminds me of Uncle Albert when he tells them he can speak German in Only Fools and Horses, and he just speaks slowly and loudly. Polly comes back.
He said, Polly, don't mention the war.
Yeah. So the first thing he says, "They're Germans, don't mention the war." Basil calls Polly Elsie, which is something the Major does earlier. Yeah. And obviously he said Elsie hasn't worked there for 2 years. So now you can tell Basil is loopy from the head wound. There's two older ladies who are permanent residents of the hotel, and they come in and say, "Oh, we don't think you're very well, Mr. Fawlty." And he says, "Perhaps not, but I'll live longer than you."
Yeah.
Which was like, that's so deep.
So harsh.
Even more German guests arrive.
Yes.
And then Basil says, "I'll ask them if they want something to drink before the war." Don't mention the war.
There's also a line where he goes, "Welcome your war."
May I welcome your war?
Yeah.
Your war. You all.
Yeah.
You all.
War, yeah.
The German guests then go to the dining room for their dinner.
While that's having Polly's there trying to call the doctor. There's like, "He's here. Come on.
Come and get him." Yeah, he's losing his shit. There's another, obviously not as on the pulse as thingy, but Basil talks about the UK joining the European Union. And he says, I didn't vote for it myself. And I was like, yeah, of course you didn't, Basil. Of course you didn't.
He goes, we're all friends now. No need to mention the war. Like, we need to just establish, okay? It's bad what he's doing. But it's so hilarious because he has, at the start of the episode, he's like, it's going to be there, no, it's going to be good, polite. Because he's lost loopy, the real him is coming out.
And what's amazing about it is, and I think this is quite progressive considering it was less than 30 years from the end of the war, the Germans are played off as very normal.
Yes.
They get upset with him. They don't.
Yeah, what? The people start crying.
Yeah, they don't play up to any stereotypes. They genuinely are like, what the fuck are you talking about? They want him to stop. And this is one of the few examples. Well, no. So this is a better example than earlier. Basil is the mug. Yes. Basil is the fool. Basil is the one who you're laughing at. Yes. You're not laughing at the Germans, whereas before you were laughing at the horrible things the Major was saying.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not laughing at him saying, because all he's saying is the war. He just constantly says the war, right, in front of German people, and it's the situation, not the words, that's funny.
Yeah.
If he was to mention the war not in front of German people, no one would laugh at that. But because there's German people there, it's awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. So he takes the orders down. 2 egg mayonnaise, a prawn gobbles, a Hermann Goring, and 4 cold salads.
Which is... I know that when you get a concussion, it's that you're not meant to be able to filter yourself, but he's clearly imagine if he didn't have the concussion, this is what he would be thinking even if he was taking the order. He just can't keep it in.
And then, so the Germans finally stand up to him. It's like, we didn't start. It's like, yes, you did. You invaded Poland.
That's the line that a lot of people remember. But there's still great lines before that. He corrects the orders that you just said. And he says, I'll get your orders, which must be obeyed at all times without question.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. And then he goes back out to the kitchen and says to Polly, listen, don't mention the war. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. She's like, no, you did not. You absolutely did not. And when, after the line you said about, you started it, no we didn't, you invaded Poland, one of the Germans says, stop it. And he says, I'm trying to cheer her up, you stupid crowd.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh my God, Basil.
And he goes, who's this? And he does the finger moustache. And he goes, I know what, cheer up. I'll do the funny walk.
And again, this is another moment that was replayed as one of the funniest moments in British, because he's got these gangly legs and he's got the physical. His feet, he's doing
the goose step.
But his feet go above his head level. And he's tall.
And he is so exaggerated in his movements, and it's so gangly, and it's just insane.
As he's doing this, the doctor arrives, and Basil sees him and runs away.
Yeah.
As Basil hits Manuel, I'm not sure why, but then the moose head falls on him, so justice for Manuel. But then it hits Manuel as well.
Yeah.
So he's unconscious now. Then Manuel says, so the moose head lands on Manuel's head.
Yeah.
And Manuel says something from within the head.
Yeah.
And the Major thinks the moose is talking again. And the Germans have the final say in the whole episode. However did they win?
Yeah.
Which is, I don't even know who the joke's supposed to be on at that point. I'm confused.
I think the joke is meant to be if Basil is a representation of Britain, he has represented us poorly.
Yes, he very much has. Let's split the episode in two, because it's not.
It's 2 halves essentially.
Let's not everything up to the Major's racist rant. Barely there's a couple of good gags in the first scene, not really worth writing home about.
No.
Then the Major says the horrible things. After the Major says the horrible things, what do you think of the rest of the episode?
I think it's great, honestly. Because we mentioned the show earlier, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's the biggest comparison I drew that scene to.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Where it's this awful person saying awful things, but he gets his comeuppance.
He definitely does, yeah.
And I think that's what makes it funny. And what he is saying, it's stupid, and I think it works better now because sensibilities have changed.
Yeah.
I think back then, a lot of people might have agreed with what he was saying, which is a horrifying thought to think about. But now it's relations are better. I mean, if you weren't happy about the UK leaving the EU, you'd probably be like, yeah, what he's saying is stupid. I mean, if if you voted leave, you probably still agree with Basil.
Yes, and probably most points.
Yeah, most points, but
I almost said if you agree that we should have left the EU, you probably agree with the major, but I'll leave that one out.
I mean, they probably do. But so I think, yeah, it's hilarious. Like, and I think it's John Cleese is like just facial reactions where he's seeing all these things and he's like looking very shocked of why the Germans are mad at him. It's just all this stuff. It's hilarious.
I think he, in writing this, was maybe even trying to play both sides of the coin. Let's get the right wing people and say some horrible things,
Yeah,
and have them laugh at that, and they can even laugh at the German things. And then let's get the left wing people, where Basil's like making a tit of himself in front of just normal people.
yeah,
But comparing them to obviously the Nazi regime.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a difficult one to judge. There is definitely a reason that this episode, especially the part about the Germans, is beloved.
Yeah.
And I think another reason it's beloved is a lot of people don't remember that scene with the Major.
I mean,
or even know of its existence.
yeah, it probably got erased, and well, we still have peace.
Yes. So we're going to move on to Series 2, Episode 2, The Psychiatrists.
Yes.
We start with another vandalised sign.
Watery fowls.
Watery fowls, yes. Sybil is on the phone again. She lives on the phone, I swear. Basil is trying to get through to the speaking clock by talking to the operator, and he cannot get through. And then Mr. Johnson arrives. Sybil starts flirting with him, and she says to him, "Oh, enjoy your life, you're only single once." And then Basil says, "Twice can be arranged."
Which makes me believe that they were like high school sweethearts or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're now just stuck in a loveless marriage.
Well, the word single, especially back then, didn't mean you just didn't have a partner. It meant you weren't married.
Oh, okay.
So even now, if you fill out an official document, if you're not married,
you write single.
You write single. Even if you've got a partner. Even if you live with that partner, I think in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Which is weird.
Yeah. Basil is trying to work in the office, which is behind the main counter. And gets distracted because Sybil's rabbiting on with Johnson.
The bravest orangutan in Britain.
Because he's so Johnson's got all but one button undone, I think.
Yeah.
Like the bottom one, and he's got like a really hairy chest. Basil talks about how much he hates that type. And talks about his jewellery.
Yeah.
And Sybil defends him. He's like, "Oh, one of them's an Egyptian fertility symbol." And then Basil says, "That must come in handy."
Yeah.
Like, such a sarcastic bastard. Yeah, compares Johnson to a monkey. And then he starts doing like sly monkey impressions in front of other guests.
Yeah, in front of the two doctors.
Yes, so two doctors arrive. At first, Basil thinks it's a doctor and his wife.
Yes.
And then he says, "No, we're both we're two doctors."
Yeah.
And he thinks that the man then has two doctorates.
Yeah.
He can't get his head around the idea that the woman is a doctor. She's a doctor also.
Yeah. So doctor, and doctor.
Basil obviously fusses over them. Sybil continues to flirt with Johnson, who chews his gum like an obnoxious prick.
And he just looks so bored as she's just waffling at him.
He's not even listening.
No.
She's waffling at him while he's trying to get through to someone on the phone.
Yeah.
Basil returns and keeps banging on about having doctors in the hotel and how much he loves it. He says, "We've got both ends of the evolutionary scale in at the minute, don't we?" Because it was again referring to Johnson as a monkey. So the doctors come back down to the lobby, and as they do so, Johnson's sort of halfway through telling Sybil a joke.
Is this the bit where they come down, they ask for a guidebook of the area?
Yes.
And they say it's the world's shortest book, like the wit of Margaret Thatcher.
So it's a guide to Torquay,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And Sybil laughs hysterically, and Basil just stares at him.
See, when I saw that, I was like, is he saying that because not because Sybil laughed, but because he insulted dear Maggie Thatcher?
Yes, well, maybe. I just think... I never read it as that. What I thought it was is just that he hates this man.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him. He's an arse.
He then asks if there's anywhere to eat French food, and he says, "Yes,
France, I believe."
They're quite keen on it, and the swim will certainly sharpen up your appetite. Better hurry up, the tide leaves in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, obviously, the character has a lot of faults. But could you imagine having that cutting of a wit?
He's the most British of men.
Yeah. Sybil points out that Basil, he's either very rude or he's an arse kisser, and he just says, "Just trying to enjoy myself." We go to Basil serving in the dining room, and he offers the doctors a free drink.
Yeah, he's just kissing up to them.
Yeah, he really is. And this is where he finds out what kind of doctors they are. Did you remember what the lady was?
She's podiatrist, right?
Pediatrician.
Pediatrician.
That's
yes.
the joke. He gets confused and thinks it's about feet.
Yes.
Because obviously she's a child doctor.
And Abbott is a psychiatrist, and
is
that causes Basil to freak out.
Yes. He freaks out and runs in the kitchen. Oh no, before that actually, does he say the line of, "We've had a faith healer once." Well, when we first opened up, I was like, "Oh, fucking faith healer, you can fuck off." Yeah, Basil freaks out, and he starts worrying that Sybil's gonna start like blabbering about their personal life.
The psychiatrist, what are they talking about? Sex. And then the two doctors are talking about holidays.
Yes.
And how difficult it must be. So Basil comes out and they ask him, "How often can you and your wife manage it?" And Basil goes, they go like, "Look, once a year, twice a year." It's like, a year? No, a week? Oh, no.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times a week. What's the normal amount?
Yeah.
And then he's obviously so obsessed with the idea that they're going to talk about sex and they're just talking about holidays. He comes back out to the kitchen and said, like, tells Sybil that they're asking about sex. He's like, "No." She's like, "No, they're asking about holidays."
He goes, What? It's only twice a week.
And that's kind of the end of that scene. We go back to the front office and Basil checks in a new guest.
Yes.
A young Australian lady.
Yes. And he's clearly trying to not look down her top.
Yes. And he immediately asks about her necklace, which is obviously a parallel to the necklaces that Johnson was wearing, and him like poo-pooing them, and now he's interested. As this is happening in the background, Johnson sneaks in with a lady.
Yes.
And they go run upstairs.
I was going to put the entire time I wrote him as Monkey Man.
Monkey Man. Basil, instead of Manuel doing it as his job, Basil's like, "Oh, I'll take you up to your room." Takes the Aussie girl up to her room. As they go into the room, he's showing her around and he realises the light in the bathroom doesn't work.
Yeah.
And he's starting to try and fix it. And she's stretching and talking about her journey. And she stands, fuck knows why,
right in front of the light switch. Like, back on the light switch.
Yeah. So and Basil's not looking where he's reaching. He's trying to fiddle with the bulb.
Yeah.
And he reaches around, because he's got these long limbs. He reaches around the door and tries to flick the switch. Instead, just tweaks her nipple.
Yeah. And that's when Sybil walks in.
And just as Sybil walks in. I'm going to say this, don't get me wrong, he's being a bit weird because he's like half trying to flirt with her.
Yeah.
But the whole him groping her was not his fault.
Yeah, that was a legitimate accident.
That was her standing in the wrong place after seeing him already reach around once and try to do it. Sybil doesn't believe him, obviously. And then she does drop a line, obviously, because he was in the bathroom and she was in the thing.
Yeah.
Sybil says, "If you're going to grope a girl, have the gallantry to stay in the room with her."
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. Basil hears Johnson telling the same joke he told Sybil earlier, but he hears a woman's giggle come from the bedroom.
Yeah.
And he knocks on the door and says, guests aren't allowed their own guests
after 10 p.m.
After 10 p.m. of the opposite sex, which is obviously very outdated. So you could have another man in there and they could be a couple.
Yeah.
And Basil would accept that. That's fine. He asks for champagne. Basil sends Manuel to go get it, right? And he's, instead of helping, he's just listening in.
Yeah, just trying to hear a female voice.
Yes. Basil then opens the door to the doctor's bedroom, where he's their room they're staying in, and tries to listen through the wall.
Yeah.
Doesn't hear anything, but then the doctor's come back, and he's pretending he's checking the plasterboard for something.
Yeah. And then Manuel comes with champagne and they accidentally knock it over and everything.
Oh, so yeah, that's when Basil takes it off him and he's like, "I'm going to knock down the door."
Yeah.
And he goes in and he tries to run through the door of Johnson, and it's locked. Did you notice something? The whole set wobbles.
Yeah. Especially when he was knocking on the wall.
Yeah.
It was wobbling.
It's obviously a regular set on a TV studio. He does at this point call Manuel a Spanish ape and a continental cretin.
Yes.
Which is not good.
But no, Manuel isn't a foreign idiot.
No, that is not what the character is at all. The Major then comes and tells Basil this is a psychiatrist, and he seems worried about it too, and rightly so, because they will, a psychiatrist may will that fucker off. Johnson lets Basil in with the champagne when the girl's hiding in the bathroom. Basil empties the cigarettes into his hand and looks at the butts to try to see if there's lipstick on them. Basil then goes into the Aussie girl's room, which is the other side of Johnson, to try listen again, not realising she'd gone to sleep on the bed. She screams. This causes Sybil and everyone else to come see what's going on.
He's constantly getting himself in trouble with her.
Sybil obviously gets more annoyed, and he's just like, "I'm doing the walls," or whatever, he's checking the walls again. And this is where he grabs Manuel and says, "We're going to go get a ladder," and he's going to go look from the outside into the room to try and catch Johnson with this woman.
But then he accidentally looks in room 5.
He accidentally puts the ladder up to the doctor's room. Yeah. And then he pretends to do the same thing that he was doing on the plasterboard on the window. And then the ladder falls. and it goes backwards like he sells it like when Christian falls off the ladder in TLC.
And then the Australian woman goes, "Oh, yeah, he was just trying to check the walls," and she's like, "Oh, clearly that's not it." Storms down, just slaps him.
Manuel gets Basil in more trouble by saying he's just trying to see the girl.
Yeah, just trying to see the girl.
Obviously, what he means is the girl in Johnson's room, but she thinks he means the Aussie girl.
So that's why she slaps him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where Sybil goes, "If you want to grope the guest, at least be honest about it."
There's another bit where Basil picks up Manuel and shakes him, and that's a clip that's been clipped a ton of times.
Yeah.
And used because like Andrew Sachs keeps his body very stiff, and like when John Cleese shakes him, he's like almost like a fucking wooden board. He like wobbles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
So Basil's still determined to catch Johnson out, so he doesn't sleep for the whole night.
No.
He stays outside their room watching. Polly goes to bring Sybil her morning tea, but Basil takes it off her and says, "I'll do it."
Yeah.
To try to get back in Sybil's good books, but that ain't happening. He hears a woman's voice in the Johnson's room again. He goes running over, and it turns out that paediatrician doctor was actually the one in there returning the guidebook.
Yeah.
As the psychiatrist watched this, he says there's enough material in here for an entire conference, which is like, well, yeah, Basil is a lunatic.
Yeah, he is.
Basil's still not content. He still wants to catch Johnson.
Yeah.
So he goes and hides in like a cleaning cupboard, and he somehow gets like black mess on his hand.
Yeah.
And he hears a woman coming out, and he jumps out the cupboard and goes to grab her, and it turns out it's the Aussie woman.
And he puts her hand
right on her chest.
Yeah.
There's a handprint, and Basil's got black hands.
Yeah, that's when the line, if you want to grope the guest, at least be honest about it.
Yes.
Because, like, no matter what you say, how that looks.
So she says something, he says, "Hi dear, just checking the doors," and she says, "Do you think a girl like this would be interested in an aging, brillianting stick insect like you?" It's like, there you go, cutting. He is a stick insect.
He is. Such a gangly man.
Basil snaps at Sybil and tries to force her to watch as he confronts Johnson. Johnson claims that it's his mother in the room, and it turns out that his mother is in the room, and somehow the young lady has disappeared. In all the kerfuffle, she's slipped out.
So as for it, she rapidly aged.
She rapidly aged, yes. And as the doctors return, Basil pulls his entire suit jacket over his head and starts hopping around like a frog.
It goes insane. In
another brilliant kind of physical comedy moment. And that's it. That is the end of Series 2, Episode 2, The Psychiatrist. What do you think of this episode, Tim?
I think it's good. This was shockingly the longest episode, actually.
There's only a couple of minutes in it, isn't there? But it is, yeah. It's about 32 minutes, and the others are all like 29, 30.
Yeah. I feel like because I feel like with these, the story like splits into two halves. Like there's a halfway point where it's clear, like, now I'm telling this story.
Yeah.
I feel like the story of trying to catch Johnson drags a bit too much.
It's a very old-fashioned thing to do, to split. Like sitcoms, like Only Fools and Horses does it a lot. Kind of 70s and 80s sitcoms do it a lot, where there's two stories and there's the first half story and a second half story, because you've had an idea that you can't maybe fill out into half an hour.
Yeah.
So you cram the two ideas together and make one story.
Yeah.
But what modern stuff does is, rather than splitting it like that, if you've got two stories, they overlap them until an A and a B, rather than
an A and B story, which I find is a much better thing, because then
it helps with pacing,
and also you can interlink them towards the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just go, "Oh, this happened to me. Wasn't that hilarious?" But sometimes, if you do it cleverly, you can interlink them, which is
for sure.
Both this is like build up. Okay, now we introduce the Australian lady, and Basil's trying to find out what Johnson is hiding, and I think that drags out too long. I found the stuff with the Australian lady really funny, especially with the idea.
Probably cut like 3 minutes from it for sure.
Yeah. I think the stuff with him accidentally being a creep and trying to convince Sybil I'm not doing this on purpose is actually quite hilarious stuff, especially considering how sort of bastard Basil is. It's like he's getting his comeuppance for something that's actually not his fault.
He's like 90% innocent. He clearly does perv on the girl a little bit, but he's not actively actually trying to grope her.
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
So stuff like that's fine. I think a few things could have just been trimmed down, and it probably could have been like a tight, exactly 30-minute episode.
I'm sure there's, if you go like the UK Gold version, probably does, because they trim stuff for time.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a version that you might prefer out there. Director's cut. We've got one more episode to talk about. Series 2, Episode 4, The Kipper and the Corpse.
Yes.
We start with another sign.
Fatty owls.
Fatty owls. I wonder how long they spent doing anagrams of Fawlty Towers.
Well, they also removed some words like letters as well.
Well, yeah, you can't add letters, but you can definitely take them away.
Like fatty house, there's no E in there.
Yeah. So the kid who's been fucking with it has obviously stolen them.
Yeah.
We start in the bar with the Major.
So this is the first time I saw that room. It's like, the dining room looks different.
That's the bar. It's a different room. Yes.
It's on the other side, isn't it?
Yeah. So, it's the opposite side to the dining room. This is like behind the reception. And then the dining room's the other side of the building. Yeah. And the Major's talking to this woman who's got a fucking yappy little dog, and she's clearly a mad. You get them like mad dog people.
Yeah.
And the Major says, "What breed is he?" And she says, "He's a little Shih Tzu." Oh no, that's it. He goes, "What is he?" She says, "He's a little Shih Tzu." He goes, "Oh dear, what breed is he?"
Yes.
Basil fobs off because the woman's like making demands on behalf of the dog, and he fobs off. He's like, "I'm not doing that. Manuel can deal with the dog." Dr. Price comes to the bar, and he is played by Jeffrey Palmer, who actually sadly died in 2020. But as you mentioned earlier, he's in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yes.
In James Bond. He's in a ton of stuff. I don't think he's ever been like a big lead in anything. He's a bit of a British kind of TV and film institution. He just appears a lot.
He's been in like multiple episodes of Doctor Who as like different characters.
Probably in the original and the remake, I would have thought. Yeah.
But,
Price asked if he could order food, but the kitchen's closed. Sybil asked Basil if she can make make a sandwich for someone, and he's like gets annoyed. And then when he realizes it's for the doctor, he's like, "Oh yes, of course."
And just gives himself a little slap.
Yeah. He continues to berate the dog. Basil talks to a couple who then leave.
Yeah.
And I said this couple are a mad mismatch. They look like Laurel and Hardy. The bloke is small and squat and fat. The woman's tall and skinny and about half of his age. It's like, this can't... at first you get father and daughter, but no, they're actually like all coupley and holding each other. Like, this is weird. This must be an affair of some description. This doesn't feel right. Basil gets the doctor a sandwich and Sybil's on the phone again.
Yeah, I just put gossiping. Just gossiping.
Yeah. This weird couple that that I just mentioned come to the desk and they get their key, and that's the thing that I don't. Hotels will do it for you, but it's not the standard anymore. Yeah. Now, back then, I think you used to leave. You didn't leave the hotel with the key.
Yeah.
You go, "Here's my room key. I'll be back at 6," and you get it. It just doesn't happen anymore. You take the key with you.
Yeah. Well, because now, especially because they're like cards.
Mostly cards.
The NFC cards. Have you ever been in a hotel where your card will power your room?
Oh yeah.
Because I was in.
It's just a connection for a circuit.
Yeah. Because I was in Rome 4 years ago, and
I find it well annoying. It's annoying.
It is frustrating, but we were given 2, and the hotel receptionist was like, "Keep one here, leave it in the circuit because it'll turn on the air conditioning."
Yeah.
So she said, "When you get back, your room will be nice and cool," and we did that. It was a great experience ever. Because if you've ever been to Rome in the summer, it's hell.
So when me and my wife went to Italy, we did that. We did a little tour around Italy and we left the aircon on in every room. So a group of people reappear. One of them turns out to be a guest. He's got a bad stomach. He gets his key and goes back off to his bedroom. But before that, he asks for breakfast in bed. His name's Mr. Lehman.
Yes, Mr. Lehman.
He orders kippers, which is fucking weird, man. Fish for breakfast is bizarre.
Yeah.
Basil's sarcastic again. He asked him what he wants his tray made out of,
Yeah.
and then he says he doesn't even have to wake up. If you fall asleep with your mouth open, I'll just pour it in.
Yeah. So then the lady with the dog, she's now in the dining room.
So this is breakfast time now.
Yeah.
We're back at breakfast time, and she's in the dining room. These kind of people, they do exist, and they fucking blow my mind.
Oh, they annoy me.
This needs to be an exact certain temperature for a dog. Have you ever tried to give a dog anything? Chocolate is poison to them.
Yeah.
They should know this. They will fucking eat that. They don't give a shit. Dogs will eat anything. And she's like, it has to be a certain temperature. And like, this dog would eat its own shit.
And
like,
there needs to be a pillow for him.
Oh. Manuel doesn't understand what she's asking, but then Polly does explain it in Spanish.
Yeah.
This is the only scene that I think gives credence to the idea that he just doesn't understand the English.
Yeah.
Because when Polly explains it in Spanish, she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he goes and gets it. This almost immediately gets undone.
I know.
Although Polly now speaking Spanish and German, Renaissance woman.
Just let Polly run the hotel.
Yeah. Manuel then misunderstands the instructions yet again. He tries to put the pillow on the table when she said put it on the table, and puts the food under the dog's on the dog's chair. It's all the thing. Basil goes to the kitchen and sees that the kippers are expired, and the chef's like, they're fine. Don't worry about it. Manuel actually looks pissed off by serving the dog, which I do not blame him.
I mean, that is like the most demeaning thing, because she's treating the dog like it's a person.
Yeah. Well, this is
and treating Manuel like he's lesser than a dog.
Less than the dog, yeah. Especially Shih Tzus, they're terrible dogs. If it was a border collie, border collies are better than a lot of humans.
Is that your favourite breed of dog?
Oh, yeah, border collies are the best.
Mine is Beagle. They're little scamps, but if you train them well, loveliest dog.
Only problem with beagles is they're a bit yappy, but
yeah. Have you ever heard a husky howl? It's terrifying.
Yeah, and you have to walk them like 4 times a day. So
yeah, I can do that.
The dog bites Manuel.
Yeah.
And then the woman says to him, "Do you not have dogs in Calcutta?" Like, this is racism on a weird level that I do not understand.
I that's how they sometimes say, right? Like older people they say racist remarks and like oh, but they're old. It's like, no excuse.
No excuse.
Do
not
better.
at all. She orders sausages for the dog, and she asks them to be cut up, but Polly misunderstands, which is another thing that I like in the favour of Manuel isn't an idiot, it's just misunderstanding, because Polly misunderstands her as well. Because Polly reaches across and starts cutting up her eggs.
Yeah.
And then Polly's like, "Oh, I'll do it in the kitchen." She takes the dog's sausages away and cuts them up in the kitchen and covers them in Tabasco sauce.
Yeah.
Bangers a la bang, she calls it. Basil takes the kippers up to the room, but he doesn't want to. One, he doesn't want to serve the guy in his bed, and 2, he's still worried about them being out of date, even though the chef said it'll be fine. Basil lets himself into Lehman's room.
And he's obviously dead.
Yeah. He's banging on about the car industry and the strikes.
Yeah.
Relevant. Now, again, relevant. Lehman is clearly already dead. The audience clearly notices straight away. Who sits up like that anyway?
And his eyes are wide open.
He comes in, he puts the tray on his lap, he opens the curtain, keeps talking as well, and then leaves.
And he goes, "What's that? Oh, never mind."
And he goes, "What was that? Oh, thanks for breakfast." Not at all, don't mention it. Because obviously he doesn't reply.
Yeah.
Although, if he dies sat up like that, he's going to get a bad neck even before he died. That was a weird way to sit. Clearly just so the audience can see him.
Yeah.
But it's such a weird way to sit.
But it's hilarious, because he's just stiff as a board.
Basil comes downstairs and complains that Lehman didn't say a word and was really rude. He tells Polly... Polly realises he forgot the milk and says she'll take it up.
Yeah.
Basil goes out into the dining room. He tells them he's going to hit the guests, which I think is funny. Polly comes back down and tells them Lehman is dead. Polly and Sybil run off to check, and Basil returns to the kitchen and asks what's wrong with that dog. Obviously, he started eating the Tabasco sausages. Chef and Manuel tell Basil that Lehman is dead, but Basil first misunderstands, thinking it's the dog. He's like, "No, the dog's definitely alive."
Yeah.
And then he realises, no, Lehman, and he's like, "We could get 20 years for this,"
because he thinks it's the kippers.
Yeah.
And then they realise like the kippers have been untouched, like he's been dead for hours. And he goes, "I'm so happy, hooray!"
Oh, wonderful! Like, this is such an arsehole. They asked the doctor who was at the bar yesterday to come up and see him, and the doctor's like, "Yeah, he's been dead for hours." Basil's still trying to hide the kippers for some reason.
This is a kipper sticking out your jumper.
I don't understand also, then they try to cover up the fact that Basil didn't notice. Don't get me wrong, it's shitty that he didn't notice, but not a crime.
That's it, it's like, he's just an idiot.
Yeah. I did say this though, like, I could fully well, if I was tired and just done with it for that day, fully feel that I could ignore someone that much.
And especially if you're already like not a fan of this person.
Yeah, if they've already annoyed you by demanding breakfast in bed.
Yeah.
Basil has a bit of a breakdown trying to defend himself, still has a kipper sticking out of his jumper. They tell them they're going to contact the morgue, the undertakers. But Basil decides that because the hotel is fully booked for the next night, he needs to get the body out.
Yeah.
So they cover the body in blankets and try to take it out, and then an old lady, Miss Tibbs, one of the blankets falls off, and she tries to help and put it back on. Then the whole thing falls off, and she really sees the dead body and screams and passes out.
Yeah. No, doesn't Polly knock her out?
No, that's it. No, Polly doesn't knock her out. She's hysterical. Polly slaps her. That slap wouldn't have knocked her out. I think she passes out from the hysteria. Yeah. Polly just happens to slap her.
And then Basil goes, 2 dead, 25 to go.
So now they drag the 2 bodies into this couple's room, this Welsh couple's room.
Yes.
And at that point, that's when the guests reappear and try to go into their room, and Polly tries to like divert them by saying she dropped her ring, and then stand in front of the door being like, Basil will get your coat, he's just cleaning up.
And then she's like, "Basil, the guests are here, they want to come in." He goes, "Oh no. Wait a minute."
So they she hand them the coats through the door first?
Yes.
Yes. And then they say they want to come in to get something else.
Yeah.
So Basil hides the dead body and the body of and the unconscious body of Mrs. Tibbs in the wardrobe.
Yeah. Then Miss Tibbs starts like moaning because she's woken up. So Manuel starts to sing to drown out the moan, and then Basil and Polly join in.
Yeah, see, Basil isn't as... Maybe Manuel isn't as dopey as they make out. He's trying to help. The old lady then comes out and tries to, like, scream, like, saying about the body and how horrible it is. And Polly just, like, cradles her, tries to comfort her, but keeps saying sentences with the word arm in them, because the arm falls out of the wardrobe.
Anything have happened with the corpse in there?
Oh, that's yeah. So Mrs. Fawlty's talking to Mrs. Tibbs in her bed and making her a cup of tea.
Yeah.
She says, anything could have happened. And Sybil says, well, he was dead.
Yeah.
And she says, a man's a man, Mrs. Fawlty. Wow. The Welsh couple are leaving to go to another hotel.
Yes.
And
Who can blame them?
No, not at all. Basil and Manuel carry the body down to the office while Polly keeps a lookout.
Yeah.
And the major comes into the office with the dead body sat on a chair. And he asks what he's doing. He's like, he's dead. It's like, shot, was he?
Yeah. But why would Fawlty tell him?
I don't know. Maybe the major's an old war guy, like a veteran. Maybe he feels like he can handle it.
That's true.
The old lady then, Mrs. Tibbs then...
Goes into the office and just screams and collapses again.
Finds the body again. But at first, actually, Basil goes to the kitchen and tries to hide from her.
Yeah.
And then hears the screams, like, oh, God damn it. And then Sybil asks why you left the body in the office. And he said, well, he wouldn't fit in a safe and the drawers were all full.
Yeah. And then they take the body outside, and the two guests, they're like driving away, and they see him, and they get distracted by him as they go, oh no, we've got to go back inside with the body now.
Yeah.
And they crash their car.
Yeah, so the Welsh couple crash their car because they see the body. Basil and Manuel put the body... This is where they put it into the kitchen. And the lady comes in and says her dog's now seriously ill, please call a vet. Basil just ignores her.
And then the doctor goes, I'm a doctor and I want my sausages.
So yeah, the doctor has been waiting for his breakfast for some time now. So the body's in the kitchen and the doctor comes in and says, that's not hygienic, you can't have a body here. You'll need to scrub everything. And they put him in the washing basket.
Yeah.
And he says, but you can do my sausages first, I'll take the risk.
Yeah.
So they put the body into the giant wash basket.
Yeah.
And Manuel then goes out to the dining room and sees that the doctor's waiting on his own. He's like, no, breakfast is over. And he tries to clear the... He's like, I've not had my breakfast yet.
Yeah.
I was dealing with...
Yeah.
And they almost have like a sibling-esque row where he's chasing Manuel around the tables.
Yeah.
Basil comes in and he tells Basil's like, this idiot's trying to take everything away. And Basil's like, again, I'm assuming... to explain to Manuel that breakfast is still on for the doctor, he pokes him in the eye. That's him explaining it.
Straight to the point.
Lehman's group arrive and asks where he is.
And Basil thinks they're the Undertakers.
But before that, though, he's like, "Oh no!" and he like lies on the wash basket seductively, like a French girl, as they say in Titanic. Isn't it? Yeah, he thinks they're the Undertakers, and then there's like a confusion, and he goes to show them the body, and it's empty.
Yeah,
and he realizes that the company that do the washing have then taken away Lehman's body in the wash basket. The doctor smells the burning of the sausages for a second time. And he goes and checks and throws them in the bin and says, these are burnt. And what I like about that is he just starts helping himself.
He just makes it himself, like, respect to him.
They go and get the body back, and they still start moving him around again. They try to take him back upstairs. They go into a bedroom, and there's a man blowing up a sex doll.
Yeah.
That man, they named the character after someone who John Cleese considered a friend who gave Fawlty Towers a bad review. So the character is named after someone.
Jesus. Don't piss off John Cleese.
No. They then go into...
They try to take it into the kitchen. They see that the doctor's making his sausages together, so they go, okay, we can't put him in there.
Yeah, and they also go into another bedroom, and there's a lady asleep on the bed, and Polly like throws the duvet over and goes, nope, not this way. Manuel, they come back downstairs they leave the kitchen, and Manuel's like, I'm done, I'm exhausted, I can't do it. And he goes, Mr. Fawlty, I don't want to work here anymore. And I'm like, man, how's it taking this long, Manuel?
I know. And
then he goes and puts himself in the linen basket. He's like, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. Sybil, in this time, has taken the time to tactfully tell Mr. Lehman's friends that he has passed away.
Yeah.
And Basil has sat the body on the coat rack.
Yeah.
And one of his friends wants his hat off the coat rack.
Blocking the body.
The old lady, Mrs. Tibbs, comes in to speak to Basil.
Yeah.
The dog owner comes in and says the dog has died from the Tabasco. The doctor then comes in and says the sausages are off.
Yeah.
Basil, so there's now a crowd of people.
He's getting overwhelmed, and he just points them in the direction of Sybil.
Says, if you want an explanation, my wife will give it to you. And as they all rush towards her, he dives into the laundry basket just as the laundrymen come and carry it away.
Yeah. Well, Sybil's screaming, Basil! Basil! And Miss Tibbs sees the corpse one last time and screams.
And the Major stands next to it and talks to it. Ask what's going on.
It's such a chaotic ending.
In a weird...
the final shot, it's just the van driving away.
In a weird way, I feel like there's still 2 episodes after this. If that was the last episode, the idea that Basil just quits.
It's like the perfect ending.
If he just left Fawlty Towers in the back of a laundry truck and never came back, that would be... I think that would be a better ending. That would be like the top ending.
I think so, because you have Manuel doing the same thing as well. Like, him like saying, I don't want to do this anymore. So he's already losing
Everyone quits, just leaving Sybil on her own while with Polly. What did you think of this episode?
This is my favourite episode.
It is one of the best episodes of Fawlty Towers. It's absolutely brilliant.
Because it does nothing offensive. I think we should stress that.
So, yes.
Apart from Manuel.
A minor Manuel incident, yes.
There's nothing offensive about it. It's just hijinks. And I think that's what's the best part about it.
And it's non-stop as well. The pace doesn't slow.
Yeah, it never lets up. And I think it was good that I watched this episode last, because I watched it in chronological order.
Yeah.
Because as you said, it feels like an ending. So
as
I watched, like, yeah, done.
You could not watch the last 2 episodes or put this after them and be like, yeah, fine.
Yeah, I felt perfectly satisfied. I found there was like nothing wrong with this episode to me.
No, it was great pace. They're carrying that body around for about 20 minutes out of the 30 minutes of the episode, and it doesn't stop being funny.
Yeah, because it's like the first episode where even like the serious doctor is being like an immature person.
I want my sausages.
Exactly.
So, overall thoughts on Fawlty Towers.
So, I think it's a good show. I can understand why it is still relevant in the public consciousness. But...
That is that but.
And it's a big but.
Baby got back.
It has that cloud hanging over it of... You can tell it was written in the 70s where it's very problematic.
Oh, it's so bad, isn't it?
And
I think if I'd have picked not to show you the Germans episode, it shows you something else, you would have said, yeah, it's a tad problematic.
Yeah.
It's that one episode. It's that episode.
Like, I feel like they're smart already in having cutting out that scene with the Major.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has been a smart decision.
Yeah.
But even like the rest of the German stuff, as we said, it's still very like, ooh. But at the same time, with him being the punchline, it's funny. It's not as bad as some other shows, British shows. I think the biggest example was Little Britain.
Yes.
It's not as bad
which
as that.
Which was done in the 2000s. Which is
early
crazy
2000s,
to think.
yeah. It's not as bad as that because it's just that one bit. But that bit is so massively like, whoa.
Yeah.
You have to address it or remove it. And there's argument to both sides. But I think them removing it so far has been the smarter choice.
I do as well. I think there's two ways you can do it, and it's so bad and so unnecessary that the best thing is to remove it.
Yeah, because, well, as you said, it has been removed, and I don't think it would disrupt the pace.
No. You wouldn't even, if you never, again, until we rewatched these new versions, I had no idea that existed.
Yeah.
I first watched Fawlty Towers like 13 years ago.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to me.
There is one more note. John Cleese recently made a public apology because he declared that he was going to write a sequel where Basil finds out that he's got a long-lost daughter and they try to run a hotel together. But the backlash was incredibly severe. He actually made an apology that some people considered a bit over the top for what he's apologising for because people wanted it to be left alone.
Yeah.
And he put out like a sincere apology saying, I just really wanted to do something with my daughter.
But there's already like so many legacy sequel stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think making a sequel to Fawlty Towers would harm the legacy of it.
No, because anything that's especially 50 years removed.
Yeah.
That's that's the difference in time, right? You can go, it's not the same thing. So if you just wanted to ignore the new one, just ignore it.
Exactly. And like if it doesn't do good, it's not going to like it'll be one season done.
Yeah, I'm sure, like with open all hours and still open all hours, people ignore the still open all hours because it's not as well received.
Exactly. So I think it's fine to do. I don't, and also, yeah, just let the man make comedy. Like,
Yeah.
okay, he just has problematic issues, but it's still funny, and he still has a mind for comedy. And if it's John Cleese.
Don't get me wrong, in the last 50 years, he's definitely grown with it because although he tries to defend it, I don't think he'd write something like that now.
No.
He did. I recently. I went and saw Jim Jeffries do stand up.
Yes.
And he tells a story about how John Cleese was writing a script for a movie that was set in Australia, and he wanted an Australian comedian to kind of Aussie it up.
Yeah.
And Jim Jeffries says, "All I did was say, put a good day there, put a good day there." So he's still writing, and this is like that stand up show is the one that Jeffries is touring now.
Yeah.
And he talks about they were writing it during COVID, so only a couple of years ago. So he is still actively trying to produce stuff.
Yeah, and I think he should, and I think he should make the sequel.
I don't think it's going to happen after all that faff.
It won't, but I still think he should at least go, fuck it.
I don't really know what you would do, but did you do any extra credit?
I couldn't think of anything to do. The only thing, because I was trying to think like things around Fawlty Towers. The only thing I know about that exists, and I feel like you've probably seen posters for it in London, is the live dining experience.
But you're not willing to drop 200 quid, no?
No.
I do not blame you. But it is mad that kind of thing exists.
Yeah, and that speaks to how this is still big in the public consciousness.
Mm.
But the one thing that we haven't mentioned is only 12 episodes.
12, yeah. 2 series, 6 episodes each. The BBC asked for more, I believe, and he said no. He said, I've not got enough for another 6 that I consider of the quality, and I'm not doing it.
And fair enough, because I feel like this is a show like 12 episodes is enough.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the show, like, clearly everyone has agreed, because those 12 episodes, people still talk about the show. So clearly 12 is enough. I feel like if he did an extra 6, that first season might have been so bad it might have tainted the other 2, because it's so recent.
It's something that I think that British sitcom writers are better at than Americans, knowing when to stop.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 a push series, and then only one British series I can think that went on longer and kept maintained its quality is Friday Night Dinner.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could say, well, it's controversial. Red Dwarf. Its original run.
The original 7 series, yeah.
Wasn't it?
8, sorry.
Yeah, 8.
8 series, sorry. Yeah.
Original 8 series run. Great. You can talk about quality like when Rimmer left for a bit.
Yeah.
Like maybe that was a drop off. I still think Christine Kachansky was a great character.
Yeah.
But
Red Dwarf's great. We are definitely going to... We've been discussing how to do episodes that are stuff that one of us... that we both enjoyed in the past. And we're looking around ideas so we can bring in some other stuff.
Yeah, because there are some shows I feel like we'd love to do just a retrospective on, especially considering the age difference between us and how we both interpret it.
I think I think we could definitely talk about stuff that we already both enjoy.
Yeah, and Red Dwarf is on
that list.
On that list because
we're both fans, yes.
Oh, such a great show.
So let's wrap this one up, and I'm going to ask you what what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks.
So I decided we're going to go back to the world of video games.
Lovely.
And you recently got a Steam Deck, haven't you?
I have indeed.
You're enjoying it?
I love my Steam Deck, yes.
Well, I'm going to put your Steam Deck to the test. Not in terms of graphics, in terms of high-octane gameplay.
Okay.
We're going to go to the world of Metal Gear.
Okay.
Do you know anything about Metal Gear?
I have a vague memory of playing some of the first one back on the PS1.
Okay, well, Metal Gear is normally renowned for its stealth. But we're going to be playing Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, which is turning 10 years old, actually.
Oh, okay.
And this is a high-octane hack-and-slash game.
Okay.
It's honestly one of my favourite games. I have sunk over hundreds of hours into it.
Jesus.
Which is shocking, considering it's a really, really short game. Yes, it is available on Steam, so you'll be receiving this code for that.
Awesome, thanks, I look forward to it.
And if you at home want to play it, you can play it either on Steam or on Xbox 360 and PS3.
If you've still got those consoles.
My Xbox 360 is still holding up.
Yeah, mine does as well. Mine still works just fine. That's it from us this episode. I'm Bobby Davies. You can find me on Instagram at bdavies_creative. My co-host is Tim Martini.
And you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at the Tim Martini.
The Tim Martini.
The Tim Martini. I'm very vain.
And if you want to follow us, the podcast, on socials, we are CC Society Pod on Instagram, and Tim has been doing a great job at running our TikTok, so CC Society Pod there as well, right?
Yes, we are. We did a video about Detective Pikachu, about our favourite scene in the movie, Mr. Mime.
Oh, Mr. Mime. If you want to email us, we are ccsocietypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.